Welcome to Lustria, the home of dinosaurs, mutated rats, undead pirates, dwarves, bloodthirsty demons, seductive demons, magical skeletons, elves, Marcus, the Chinese, and the French. You may be thinking to yourself, gee, that sure is a lot of different factions to cram on one island, which you would be correct, it is. There are 14 different races on Lustria, split up into 24 different factions, most of whom hate each other, so it's actually a very ambitious fantasy adaptation of Detroit. Among all the evil demons and all the chaos, there sits one man with a superiority complex, one man whose pride is so strong that he cannot bring himself to use anything but the proudest knights in his military campaign, and that man is Alberic the Butterroll. With Alberic and his army of proud knights, he will vanquish the demons, terminate the rats, and uproot the dinosaurs from their ancestral homeland. Okay, first off, let's set some ground rules. Number 1, I'm only allowed to recruit cavalry for any of my military battles. This means I can recruit shit cavalry or good cavalry, it just has to be mounted. Number 2, I am allowed to use infantry in the event of a siege defense, as infantry is put in my settlement garrison by default. Number 3, heroes are allowed as long as they are mounted or can eventually be mounted. And last but not least, this challenge will end when I conquer all of Lustria with no exceptions. Now without further ado, let's go conquer the jungle. Alright, so here we are. On turn 1, I familiarized myself with my environment and my starting army. I was surrounded by enemies on all sides, with one tiny port settlement to my name. I purged my army of all of the disgusting infantry and was left with Alberic, a paladin, and 2 Knights of the Realm. The Knights of the Realm boast a fat 90 armor and 50 melee defense, meaning they are absolute tanks. They also have a delicious 70 charge bonus, which means that they function more like a steamroller than a cavalry unit. This unit is designed to slam into the enemy at breakneck speed, then run away and do it all over again. The Knights of the Realm are also equipped with a bonus versus large, meaning they are most effective when they're against other large targets, i.e. cavalry or massive fucking dinosaurs. Though they are strongest against large targets, our enemies in the early game wouldn't have enough firepower to make a dent in our Giga Chad armor. Given enough time though, they would grow stronger and become a problem, so time was of the essence. So I besieged the lizardman settlement of Shoutout, and my knights made quick work of the local wildlife. Victory was achieved, but not for long, as the next turn there was an army of angry lizards on my doorstep who weren't very happy with me taking their settlement. How rude. They were led by mobility scooter enthusiast Teto Echo, and had far too many units for me to deal with, so I ran the fuck away and would face him later. So now I was back home, broke as shit, and desperately needed more units, so I got to work. Over the next several turns, I acquired several mounted yeoman archers and knights errant units. I won't go into too much detail with them, but all you need to know is that knights errant are slightly worse than knights of the realm in basically every statistic, and don't have a bonus versus large. While the mounted yeoman archers are a skirmish cavalry that annoy the enemy much like a mosquito that cannot be caught or killed. By turn 4, Tittymouth had retaken Shoutout, but that was completely fine with me because I just unlocked questing knights. Questing knights were the final piece of the puzzle that I needed. They gave me 2 things that I didn't have before: armor piercing and anti-infantry. These knights were meant to be thrown into melee combat against infantry and left there while they buzzsaw everything that speaks dinosaur. And with their armor piercing attacks, there's very few units this early in the game that can take these guys on. With this final piece added to my army, I was finally ready to take on Toaster Strudel. I positioned Alberic in an ambush position using my submissive and breedable caster as bait. Tennis Ball had no idea what hit him. I was pretty happy with myself catching him off guard like that until I realized that he had an ancient Stegodon in his army. This absolute fucking behemoth has 14,000 health, 100 armor, 1.2 thousand missile strength, and has aura. He has fucking aura. I entered the battle because I didn't really have a choice. If I wanted to advance in the campaign, I had to kill this army. Because of my crafty ambush, all their units were in a nice column, meaning I could place my cavalry wherever I wanted. My plan for this battle was to take my strongest fighters and fuck the Stegodon in the ass before it had a chance to do any damage. It was a foolproof plan that I thought would go great, but the ancient Stegodon has a tendency to get attacked and just say no. Elsewhere on the battlefield, things were going a bit better. My questing knights were proving to be an excellent investment, trampling over the lizardmen equivalent of a child with an AK-47. I had to pull away my best fighters from the Stegodon, but once they were distracted by the questing knights, I ran right back in and managed to kill it. Having this much cavalry against mass infantry was very effective because I could just run circles around them and then attack the weak links. Hey, it looks like my caster finally joined the party. I used her magic to cast a fat chain lightning on the lizardmen child militia, and the rest of the army folded up pretty quickly after that. With the lizardmen army running for the hills, I finally put an end to Toaster Strudel and used my cavalry to run down all of the fleeing units. The more units I run down with my cavalry now, the more units I can sell for ransom later. Apparently Brettonian custom frowns on this sort of thing, but the lady can go suck a dick, I'm broke. And when I refer to the lady, I'm referring to the Brettonians' god that will give them superpowers if they become tier 5 Patreon supporters. With the main army defeated, I retook Zahutek and began moving to the province capital, Tlaxtlan. I'm actually unable to attack cities with only cavalry, so I had to just surround them and force them to either starve to death or attack me, which they chose the latter. With the capital city secured, I had to turn my attention to Skulltaker, as he was my new neighbor and he had a certain fetish for killing things. I bolstered all my armies for an invasion from the west from Skulltaker, but felt pretty secure from the east from the Vampire Coast, as they were busy fighting 3 wars. I also got much closer to my potential ally in Marcus Wolfheart. He was currently neutral with me, but the Empire and Brettonia have always gotten along pretty well. The Empire would also have access to a plethora of crazy good cavalry that I would definitely want in my armies later. I did all the preparation that I could and just waited for the declaration of war, and it finally came. But not from Skulltaker. What the fuck? This backstabbing, beard-having little fuck was gonna feel my wrath. He showed up on my borders with 2 full armies ready to kill me, so I had no choice. By this point, I would be royally fucked if Skulltaker declared war on me, so I was just gonna go attack Marcus and hope that he didn't give me a rectal examination. While I hadn't accounted for the Empire attacking me, the Empire hadn't accounted for my army of knights. The Empire had brought a grand total of 6 spear units, which may seem like a lot. Spear units can tear apart cavalry quite effectively, but my cavalry can tear apart spear units effectively. The rest of Marcus's army was made up of archers and guns, which would be effective under normal circumstances. This battle was honestly really fucking disappointing. I was really looking forward to an epic battle, but literally nothing happened. I sodomized Marcus right off the bat, and it honestly felt like his army was attacking me with pencils and crayons. But if I was frustrated because my opponents were too easy, that was about to change, because next on the chopping blocks was the Sex Demons led by the Mask of Slaanesh. These would be my toughest foes yet, as all of their units were fast and dealt way more damage than the soy beta cucks I had fought a few turns ago. It is also worth noting that at this point I made an alliance with the Chinese to the north, as we both had an urge to kill the Mask. Most of their territory was outside of Lustria anyway, so I had no real desire to take it. Yuan Bo had took that as an invitation to trespass on my property. I told him that it would be in his best interest to fuck off, or I would tell his populace about a certain event that occurred at Tiananmen Square in 1989. After conquering Marcus's settlements, I marched Alberic into the heart of Slaanesh territory and was immediately set upon by 2 Slaanesh stacks, one of which was the Mask himself. Very fortunately for me, the weaker of these 2 stacks was just barely outside of the reinforcement range, so I was able to attack it isolated from the main host. While traveling to the Slaanesh lands, I had also made a few upgrades to my army, aka I now had 4 paladins, 2 of which had Pegasus mounts, as did Alberic. As I now had 4 paladins, it gave me an extremely strong single entity core. So let's talk for a minute about single entities. Single entities are a unit or hero that consists of one and only one model. These units are very individually strong. They maintain full functionality as long as they are alive, and they make excellent centerpieces that can change the tide of battle. If my cavalry gets attacked by a suicide bomber, they will take lots of damage, be reduced to 12 models, and then run the fuck away. Whereas if my paladin gets blown up by the same suicide bomber, 1v1's a Herald of Khorne and is on the verge of death, he will still deal 450 damage, he will still be a backbone to my army, and he is 1 heal away from being right back to where he started. So now that you are an expert on single entities, you've made it this far into the video, so you should go ahead and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. Now let's go kill some fucking demons. Ladies and gentlemen, we fucking did it. Well, kind of. This battle could have been easily won with the press of a button using auto-resolve. You may be asking yourself, why the fuck didn't I just auto-resolve it? There are 2 reasons. Number 1, I wanted to kill some demons. And number 2, the trade-off for winning a battle with the press of a button is that many of your units will die. I really couldn't give less of a shit about this battle. Again, this army was the weaker one. The real battle is the one that's coming after this one, the Mask of Slaanesh. On account of being literal demigods, my knights are pretty durable. They can usually withstand most major injuries by rubbing some dirt on it, which means that their replenishment rate is pretty good, but replenishment rate only matters when you have a turn to replenish, which we wouldn't. The mask was already on my front porch with a 12-inch dragon dildo, staring at me like the crackhead at 7-Eleven. And for the record, this is why you need to fight some battles manually, because if there's a bigger battle after it, you need to minimize casualties wherever you can. Now, my army isn't exactly in the best condition, but since this is a settlement battle, we do have access to a horde of unwashed peasants that we can use. My strategy for this battle was to have my peasants cosplay as sacks of meat, while my cavalry flanked around the side and did all the heavy lifting. I started the battle out slowly by skirmishing with my archers. I saw a unit of Heartseekers on the wing and saw it as an easy pick from my Knights of the... And there's an invisible unit. Okay, I'll just go kill myself! I sent one paladin over to assist my knights and the rest towards the mask as the army was now closing in. Lines clashed and my peasants got absolutely slaughtered. The mask is one tough son of a bitch, nearly killed Alberic and dodged damn near all of my attacks. On the flip side, I had decimated all of the mask's wing units and all that remained was a big blob in the middle with the elite heroes and infantry. I pulled all my units away and let my paladins and archers take care of the rest, and eventually the army losses were inflicted and the mask slowly withered away into nothingness. It's a damn good thing she disintegrated too, because I'm 90% sure that bitch is unkillable. With the mask now defeated, nothing could stand against me as I began to conquer the rest of Western Lustria. Except of course this random fuck-ass beastman army that appeared out of nowhere. And of course the Mask of Slaanesh was just chilling at the Chamber of Visions like she didn't fade into dust 3 turns earlier. I seriously dislike this game sometimes. So I killed this bitch for the second time, then dealt with the beastmen and continued pushing south. Actually, I don't think that dealt with is the correct term. I absolutely fucking dumpstered over all those stupid furries. Battle after battle, it wasn't long until I finally made it to Slaanesh's final settlement. You've gotta be fucked. I don't think I've ever hit an auto-resolve this fast in my life. Ladies and gentlemen, we had now conquered all of Western Lustria. After that long and hard military campaign, I figured it would be best if we just kicked back and let our settlements develop for a while. Allow me to introduce you to our new sworn enemies, the Tomb Kings. You know, don't even worry about it, I didn't even want to develop anyways. So they took one settlement away from me and there wasn't a whole lot I could do about it, but it's okay because Alberic was marching his fat ass over to the front lines. It was around this time that I summoned the Brettonians' folk hero, the Green Knight. You can essentially imagine the Green Knight as the Brettonians' equivalent of Santa Claus. If you are nice, honorable, and chivalrous, he will bestow upon you some nice buffs. And if you are naughty, well, he stabs you, kills you, and then pisses on your grave. I used the Green Knight to great effect in Alberic's quest battle for the Trident of Manan. The bonuses the Trident gave were okay, but I was more concerned about the spell, the Wrath of Manan. You will get to see me use this spell to great effect against the Tomb Kings. When I fought them at least, because they tucked tail and ran at the first sight of Alberic. I sent my Archmage to scout ahead and found out that they had 4 armies just sitting on my border. But I wasn't worried. After all, me and Alberic had been cooking up a secret weapon. And it definitely isn't the Wrath of Manan, because I lied to you, that spell fucking sucks. The real secret weapon was the Dwellers Below. Now for argument's sake, I want you to imagine that I've strapped 3 pounds of crystal meth to your body and sent you to the Tenderloin District in San Francisco, California. What do you think would happen? That's right, you would probably get swarmed by drug addicts. Now this time, I want you to imagine that I strapped you with the same 3 pounds of meth, but this time attached a remote control pipe bomb to your body. I think you know where this is going, so I don't need to explain it. Our secret weapon essentially works the same way, except my single entities are the crystal meth, the drug addicts are the Tomb Kings, and the pipe bomb is, well... Hello! Thanks to the efforts of Oppenheimer, we killed many a Tomb King and sent the rest home packing. This wasn't a perfect cast though, as we didn't catch that much infantry in it, and we also caught some of our own units in it. However, we would get another chance, as the Tomb Kings were eager to donate thousands of skeletons to testing purposes. The strategy remained the same: send the single entities in, and then watch the fireworks. So our secret weapon was semi-effective, and the Tomb Kings were no longer kings, they were just Tomb. The Tomb Kings tried to bribe me with the equivalent of 3/4, a half-eaten hot dog, and a Tony Stark Funko Pop. I was not interested. I conquered the rest of the Tomb Kings with minimal effort, and now I was finally at peace. I was fighting no wars, so I could spend my time upgrading my armies and infrastructure. I obtained my first tier 4 units, Grail Knights and Pegasus Knights. The Grail Knights especially were a force to behold. They had regeneration, perfect vigor, and a ginormous charge bonus. I had created a second army and was slowly gathering more units to prepare for an invasion on Skulltaker. At this point in time, the only residents that were left on the island were me, Skulltaker, Tehenowin, and Gorrock. I had a non-aggression pact with Tehenowin. This will become important later. The most immediate threat to my existence was Skulltaker, and he needed to go. I'll be honest, I have no idea why he didn't declare war on me yet, but it seemed like he was tied up in a war with Tehenowin and Gorrock. I lured the garrison out from, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that, and swiftly defeated them using our atom-splitting technology. Several of Khorne's armies had appeared ready to defend my advance. What I didn't expect was for these lobotomites to march right past me and towards my core settlements with all my tier 4 buildings. God fucking damn it. Skulltaker took Zahutek and a second army besieged Tlanxla. I had managed to stick a lord and a unit of knights in this settlement, and this army was weaker than Skulltaker's. There was a good chance I could defend this if I clenched my butt cheeks hard enough. I entered the battle and was reminded just how garbage Warhammer 3 siege mechanics are, but that's besides the point. The enemy forces were attacking from 3 sides, so I evenly dispersed my infantry to hopefully prevent anyone from entering the city. My infantry was made up of 3 lines: the meat shield, the slightly more competent meat shield, and then the archers. My game plan was to lure all the Khorne forces into a tight space, then repeatedly ram them with the little cavalry that I had. Fortunately, the enemy lord had thought it was a good idea to run into the city away from his infantry and was promptly trampled to death by my cavalry. Unfortunately, my best cavalry unit was obliterated by enemy artillery when attempting a flank maneuver. Because that cavalry unit was dead, we lost the northernmost engagement. I took my surviving units to the middle, ready to make a last stand, and by the skin of my ass, somehow, some way, we won. Skulltaker continued burning my settlements to the ground, but I had a defensive army waiting for him in Tlaxlan, so I wasn't super worried. What I was experiencing could be described by some as cock and ball torture, so I have no idea what you would call cock and ball torture if 3 Slaanesh armies manifested out of thin air smack dab in the middle of Lustria. What the actual fuck? If you experience arousal from being overstimulated and constantly in a state of stress and anxiety, you should probably see a doctor, but you could also play Total War Warhammer 3 as temporary relief. Luckily for me, Alberic happened to be taking a leisurely stroll through the neighborhood at the time and was able to defeat one of the Slaanesh armies with relative ease. It also seemed like the other 2 Slaanesh armies had decided to go south rather than north, luckily for me. Alberic had also finally made his way back to the core settlement and was ready to lay a whooping on Skulltaker for going rampant in his territory.
So, you're the punk I've heard about.
He stood no chance. Skulltaker had blown his last load by suicide running into my territory, and the rest of his settlements quickly fell to me. I'm gonna be honest, I completely forgot the Vampire Coast existed up until this point. Alberic was already in the neighborhood, so I sent him to dispatch them as well. By this point, we were strength rank 25 and had upgraded all of our settlements out the ass. So, you remember how I mentioned that me and Tehenowin had a non-aggression pact? Well, Tehenowin and Gorrock are really good chums, so if I declare war on Gorrock, Tehenowin would get put in a little bit of a pickle. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what I like to call a pro gamer move. Tehenowin is completely helpless as I castrate his best friend right in front of him. So it's unfortunate that right as I was about to declare war on Gorrock, he decided to take a leisurely stroll through my territory for no fucking reason. At this point, my relationship with Gorrock was quite good. I tried telling him that it would be in his best interest if he vacated the premises, but he just kept walking and walking and walking and walking. I did not know how far Gorrock intended to walk, so I felt like I had no choice. Even though they were imperfect conditions, I made a small army and attacked him while he was outside my settlement. Dear viewer, feast your eyes on the sweatiest, cheesiest, and longest battle of this entire campaign. This fucking battle took 20 minutes and cemented my hatred for Lizardmen Temple Guard. In most cases, a devastating rear charge is an effective way of dismantling an infantry unit. This logic does not apply to Tomb Guard, as all a rear charge does is just piss them off. This nut was going to be pretty tough to crack as my army was objectively weaker than theirs, this was a choke point battle, and there was a massive wall of lizards inside said choke point. My first approach was a glorious cavalry charge into their lines, By this point in the campaign, I had grown pretty accustomed to my cavalry steamrolling over all my opposition, so you could say I was quite surprised when they got mollywopped on my first charge. My second charge was no better, and right off the bat I had sustained moderate casualties and needed to re-strategize. I lured Gorok's forces across the choke point and split up my own forces. I needed to separate his army and alpha strike isolated units if I had any hope of winning this battle. It was quite easy to mop up the weak units, but I couldn't just ignore the Temple Guard and Saurus forever. Gorok had buffed them up considerably, giving them increased attack, defense, and making them unbreakable. Killing a unit of Temple Guard or Saurus spears was somewhat akin to running into a wall. Repeatedly. This took for fucking ever, and the Grail Knights carried me super hard with their regeneration. Eventually, after killing enough of his units, Gorok lost the will to fight, and we had won, losing 167 knights in the process. With Gorok defeated, the rest of my attacks were pretty much a cakewalk. I had positioned multiple extremely elite armies along the border, and my takeover was swift and brutal. The best part was that Tehenuin had to watch in shame as Itza fell. It was now well over turn 100, and I'm quite sure that there was no army in Lustria that could defeat me, as late game Brettonia is extremely broken. Conquering the rest of Lustria was gonna be a pain in the ass, so much so that I named my recording a literal fucking hour of auto-resolve I'ma kill myself. After one of my 719 battles against Itza, I received the campaign victory screen, but I was not gonna stop until all of Lustria was mine. Eventually Tehenuin ended his treaties and then declared war on me. Blinded by hatred, he failed to realize that I was strength rank 6 and had about 5 armies waiting on his borders. I was auto-resolving literally every single battle, because when you're this late in the campaign, you lose the ability to feel happiness. The only battle that I actually fought manually was this one for however the fuck you pronounce that. The first army arrived, and then Tehenuin's army arrived. I just want this campaign to be over. I conquered further south until I happened upon a little elf colony and decided it would be a smart idea to send Alberic in alone. Do keep in mind that it was about 4 AM and I wanted to shoot myself in the head. I sent Alberic in way too fucking deep and he got swarmed by elves. This was the first auto-resolve defeat I've seen in about 40 turns. My army was in pretty rough shape, but my single entities were nigh unkillable and my cavalry stats were so astronomically high that they could just run at the enemy spears and charge right through them. It didn't take long for me to finish off the elves, and victory was so close I could smell it. I gathered all of my armies for one final battle on the final settlement that I needed to fully conquer Lustria. The elves attempted to flee the city, but I wouldn't let them get away that easy. And just like that, we had fully conquer Lustria. If you would like to see more videos like this one, check out my channel and subscribe. I'm gonna try and get out a video once every month or two. Also, massive shout out to my man Gabe for making the thumbnail. This video took a very long time to make, so I wanted to make sure the thumbnail looked nice, and he did an excellent job. It looks great. I dropped his channel link in the description, so feel free to go check it out. Anyway, bye!